Hello and welcome. Welcome to the No Name Musicast. My name's Tim and this is
Joy.
And we have another great show for you this week. And as ever, I don't know what the topic is because it's Joy's turn to pick it. So Joy, take it away.
Okay, I'm very excited. I have done some preliminary research and I have even brought in some listeners, friends, co-workers, maybe enemies, I don't know, who have contributed. Now, this is a topic that I have talked to Tim before, but this is going to get interesting. The topic is misheard song lyrics. So I posted a Facebook status and copied some of our people from, if you listened last time, Tim kind of gave him a shout out. We have some Freak Jam friends and we got some co-workers that are mutual and then family members and things that I thought might have some funny things to say. Okay. And I got a whole list of them. We're not going to go through all of them, but I also did a little bit of research in the most common misheard song lyrics, and some of them are hilarious. I have a personal one that I only learned like maybe half a year ago. I was wrong. So if you've ever heard the song Till Tuesday, Voices Carry, that's the name of the song. It's like Voices Carry. That's kind of how this rhythm sounds. Mm-hmm. And that's literally the name of the song. Mind you, the name of the song is Voices Carry. I thought they were saying this is scary. So truthfully, the name of the song didn't even give it away to me. Now, what's interesting is, so I did a little bit of research. Of course, there's the whole Hold Me Closer, Tiny Dancer, which they did the Hold Me Closer. I've heard Tony Danza, and there's also a running joke about it. In a few movies, Friends, Who's the Boss, Taxi. Well, I have a friend, her name is Tia. She commented and said when she was little, before she even knew that that was actually the song lyric, she was singing it that way. So, Tim, is there any specific, before we go through some of this, times that you realized you were wrong, or if you have a funny story about someone who was wrong?
Well, I think that you just mentioned, the one that comes to mind is Hold Me Closer, Tony Danza. I mean, that is a absolute classic, and especially with the Elton John film that came out not that long ago. That whole, because I think that actually had a scene in the film.
I think it had a reference to it, yeah.
Yeah. So that whole misheard lyric came straight back out after maybe a period of not being in people thinking about it.
That's funny. Yeah, that's the biggest. That was one that I kept seeing a running joke about. But I mean, I had seen on Friends when Joey makes the joke, and I know it's been a joke, but I didn't legitimately know that there were people out there who really heard that until she commented. So another one that I came across and I don't know, this might be too new age for Tim, but it's Justin Timberlake with NSYNC. It's Gonna Be Me. There's like a whole thing where people think it's going to be May. And that's where there's a meme. So, and then this one made me laugh. Take Me Down to the Paradise City. Apparently, there are a group of people who think that it says take me down to the Prairie Dog City.
Prairie Dog City.
Prairie Dog City. I don't know what that means. So
it's either something that I shouldn't look up on Urban Dictionary or a place, or a combination of the two.
I didn't even think about that. So, Tim, you will recognize this name. Stacey Duncan gave me a great one. This is an old co-worker of ours. So, Jimmy, you were talking about Jimmy Buffett in the last episode. Mm-hmm. So she was listening to Come Monday. And, I spent 4 lonely days in a brown LA haze. Well, she said for 30 years of her life, she thought it said, I spent 4 lonely days in a brown leather case.
Oh.
So there you go.
Yeah, I mean that would make some interesting songwriting for someone spending 40 days in a brown leather case.
Well, here's the silly thing about it. There are some songs, and if you think about it, sometimes when you listen to song lyrics, they're absolutely ridiculous, truthfully.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I was playing in bands in Rough Justice many years ago, we used to cover Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it's not one of my favorite songs, but people used to like it. And the lyrics of that song mostly you can't understand it. You hear it in the song and it doesn't really make any sense. And the guy who sang in the band, Hog, it's not his real name, he said that half of the time, if he couldn't remember the lyrics, he'd go and
it probably works.
And it works just absolutely fine.
Well, there are songs where I've actually learned what the lyrics are, and I'm like, there's no way that's actually what they're saying. There's a song that Gwen Stefani does, and she was on James Corden, and she was explaining to him, and literally the song is something about soured milk coming out of the refrigerator, that you didn't shut the refrigerator door. But when she says it, because she has that what's that type of music that she used to do when she was with No Doubt? There's like a term for it. Ska.
It's like ska. It's like rock.
That's the word I was looking for. Ska.
Yeah.
So she has that kind of rhythmic sound where she could kind of make those patterns. Mm-hmm. And so it's like sour milk fell on the floor, but you shut the refrigerator, something like that. And don't let me, what is it? Something about acting so cold. So that's how it works. But realistically, I had heard that song 1,000 times and never once wouldn't even have come to my mind. Not even a little bit. So, but the most popular one, and this is the one for Tim, it's a Queen lyric, Queen the band. So, and it's a song that everyone has heard. We have both said is overplayed, Bohemian Rhapsody. So it's probably, but this was not the part I was singing, where it goes, no, 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 no. Oh, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, Mamma Mia, let me go. So it says, Beelzebub has a devil put aside for me, for me. Well, apparently, first of all, no one knows what Beelzebub means. Apparently, it's like some reference to the devil, Satan. So I don't know. Is that a British thing? Am I missing something? But I've never heard that term before.
I don't know. Isn't it like a biblical reference or something?
Yeah, something said something about, hold on, let me scroll down. Beelzebub was one of the 7 princes of hell in Christian genealogy. The name derives from an ancient Hebrew word, not going to try to say that, sorry guys, meaning Lord of the Flies. So, but it said that there was a list of things people had heard, everything. One guy even said he thought for the longest time, the algebra has a devil put aside for me. And I'm going to come to what Tim was saying about the guy that was singing in his band and he used to mumble. Truthfully, every time I've ever sang that song lyric, I did know what it said because I've read it before, but I just kind of mumbled it because Beelzebub, because he's kind of like screaming it at you anyway. So it's like, truthfully, it doesn't shock me. Now, some of our Freak Jam friends left me some good ones. Let's see here. Do you know a band called Anne Marie?
No. There's a good chance they came out after 1989.
Well, apparently Darren commented and said they have a song called Ciao Adios. And the line is, Ciao Adios, I'm done. But I always thought it was shower the horse, I'm done. And I used to think, why did they sing a song about showering a horse?
well, if it was Darren from the Freak Jam, maybe the horse had used the window.
That's fair. So, another Freak Jam friend, Phil, and this is going to go back to Bohemian Rhapsody. He says he had a friend who absolutely swore spare his life from the monstrosity was sparing his life from warm sausages.
I could see how you could hear that, but in the context of the song, the songwriting masterpiece of Freddie Mercury, is he really going to be singing about a sausage? I mean,
yeah, but to be honest, there's so many random words in that song. Truthfully, I don't know. I can't even hear the warm sausages one. That one doesn't even sound like the Beelzebub one I get because, like I said, I've mumbled it my entire life. I don't think I ever gave it any thought. But warm sausages, I don't know.
I tell you what, though, if you ever... it's especially not so much the later Queen when they started getting a bit more poppy and a bit more sort of chart type sound. That when they were in their early days, when they were a lot more progressive rock, you look at some of their lyrics of some of their songs. Freddie Mercury, he was obviously very well read because he uses some incredibly. I use fancy English sometimes, but his English is incredibly fancy the way he writes his songs.
Well, he knew what Beelzebub was. There's going to be somebody out there going, she's saying that wrong. But that's how my brain reads it. Okay. One more from our friends at the Freak Jam. Jillian said, a girl I worked with was awful for this. What sticks in my mind is groove is in the heart. She thought I said groove is in the hole. And none of us had the ability to react to that or tell her what she was doing was wrong. So that's one. And then let me see. Oh, my older sister commented this one. She said the song Red, Red Wine, which we all know has been covered about 1 million times now. My older sister speaks fluent Spanish. My brother-in-law is from Mexico. Just for context, she was dating someone previously who was also a Spanish speaker. And he thought it, for some reason, instead of Red, Red Wine, he always sang Big, Big Man. And she said that changed the song entirely. And she doesn't know how he heard it, but that's what he heard. So there you go.
I wonder whether whether he heard going back to one of our previous episodes. I wonder whether he was heard a Weird Al parody somewhere along the line.
Maybe he was writing his own. So I've made the joke 1 million times. My husband legitimately cannot tell you any song lyrics. Sometimes when I call him out about it, that's what he says he's doing. He says he's freestyling or he's trying to make his own parody. So that's one. That's what he claims, which is, I could appreciate it more if there was like a random thing that he did. But no, it's a constant thing that he does, and it drives me insane. Here's another one that I found very interesting that might hit home for Tim because it's the Beatles. Mm-hmm. For some reason, I don't even hear this one. It says a number of listeners, not one, multiples thought Penny Lane was Auntie Lane.
Auntie Lane?
Aunt, like your aunt, Elaine, like the name instead of Penny Lane. Yes, aunt. Sorry, Southern girl over here saying aunt, but that's what they heard instead of Penny Lane. And I'm trying to think on like how that would work. Cause I mean, there's like lyrics, what Penny Lane is in, but I guess it could work for a person too. Cause they're talking about.
Well, it says in Penny Lane, there is a barber showing photographs. So maybe Aunt Elaine, for some reason, ran a barber's shop and she has photographs on it.
I don't know. I just find it very interesting because for me personally, one of the things I think I'm good at is song lyrics. But every once in a while, you'll have ones that throw you, and that's the example. Another thing, though, another little caveat to this is songs that sound super happy, but they're not. So there are plenty of songs that sound like they're sending you a positive message. The one that always comes to mind is Semi-Charmed Life in the 90s. Do you know that one, Tim?
I don't know if I know that one.
So it's a very kind of 90s pop. I wouldn't even say alternative. It kind of has a little bit of an alternative sound, but it's very, very in your face. And it's literally about doing crystal meth. Oh. You would never know that based off of what they're talking about or the way it sounds. Another one is the Pumped Up Kicks that came out a few years ago, which is about school shootings, but it literally sounds upbeat, up tempo, happy. Not like Jeremy from Pearl Jam or something of that nature. No, that's a very negative. Are there any songs that you have heard, Tim, that when listening to them, you think they're one thing, and then after you really pay attention, they end up being something else? Well,
of course, the classic one, of course, is Bruce Springsteen's "Born in the USA."
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
Because you listen to it, it's like, but yeah, America, born in the USA. But you actually listen to the lyrics, it is a very dark song about a Vietnam veteran coming home from the war, and nobody wanted to know him. And that's what the song's about. And if you hear, I think Bruce Springsteen a number of years ago released an album of demos, and he put the demo of the original of that song, and it's in a minor key, and it's very dark, and it's exactly what that song should be because it matches the lyrics. You know, so it's a very dark topic. But for some reason, whoever produced "Born in the USA" made it into this kind of like sort of major key, happy anthem affair.
Yeah, and it's been used in like car commercials, movies, TV shows. I haven't even thought. I mean, I knew that, I've heard that scenario, but yeah, it really is kind of used in that way. Another one that I think people don't know along those lines is Pink Houses by John Mellencamp. Mm-hmm. So it's supposed to be, and actually Glee. Yes, I liked Glee. They did an episode where they were talking about pink houses because it's, you know, it's supposed to be about like suburbia, and he was supposedly traveling in like Bloomington, Indiana, and there was an older black gentleman sitting outside his little house in suburbia, and it was a pink shotgun house, which I don't know what that means. Apparently it's a term for a house. I'm obviously not on HGTV, so I don't know. But anyway, and so it was a reference to like those little pink houses and that kind of suburbia feel. But I feel like it's been used as a lot of different references and different things. And in Glee, they talk about he's like playing it like kind of being like rough it, all like this kind of like almost like man's man kind of song. And he's like, no, that's really not what it's about. It's really just about living in suburbia. And I think it was used in Obama's campaign. I think it was used at some point. But then to flip the switch, it was used at some point for opposing same-sex marriage. So that's one of those. And he ended up sending a cease and desist letter on that one. But that's one that comes to mind that's been used in many different references, but I don't know that it means what people think it means. So that's always interesting. And then I'm trying to think of any others.
The other one, it's sort of happy, but it's slightly melancholy, is I Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats.
Isn't that about the girl who shot up the children or something?
Yeah, I think it was some kind of school shooting or something.
So there was a girl who was staying at true crime buff here. There was a girl who was staying home. She was like, I think her father was a single parent. And basically, she walked outside and started shooting point blank at school children, on a Monday. And when the police asked her why, her words were, I don't like Mondays.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I hadn't even thought about that one. And then, I feel like Jeremy by Pearl Jam is pretty obvious that it's got some negative connotations.
Yeah, but it's standard rock songy, but it's not super happy, major key, shiny happy people type song.
Which I love, shiny happy people, and now that's in my head. I love that song.
Isn't there something with REM where they said they'll never play it because it's not like REM enough for them?
I don't know. I've never heard that, but that doesn't surprise me. But that's one of my favorite songs by them, so that's kind of depressing.
Yeah, I'm sure I heard that somewhere, that it didn't fit the regular REM song narrative. So for whatever reason, they said they was never going to perform it.
Well, think about why is that popping up? Stop. Sorry if you guys heard a background noise. With that being said, there is. What was I going to say? Think of some of the other REM songs. Like there are a lot of songs from REM that's very dark. That's kind of what you're getting at, yeah.
Yeah, I recently, going back to last week's episode, in fact, with the thrifting. I've been a casual fan of REM for years. There's not really, I won't say I'm a super fan of REM. I've never seen them play or anything, and I was never really into that world when they were out. But they've recorded some good songs, some songs that I enjoy. But I recently got 3 or 4 of their albums from thrift shops for absolute nothing. And I listened to Automatic for the People the other day, and I listened to it and I thought, do you know what, this is actually really good. I really enjoyed it.
Well, the song, to go on another thing that people probably don't know about REM is that, Losing My Religion is probably their most famous song, we'd say.
Probably,
generally.
Yeah.
By far. The Virginia Tech... What was it? The Virginia Tech shooter said that song was his favorite song. And he wrote a bunch of the song lyrics on the walls of his dorm, and REM had to step out and be like, no, that's not what that song's about. Yeah. I remember learning that. Yeah, that's and I guess I've never really gave it much thought about what the song is, but obviously that person was deranged and they could take anything and make it into anything personally. But yeah, I just remember that came out right after the school shooting. So even though that song wasn't directly, it sounds pretty melancholy, let's be honest. It doesn't sound happy. I don't think that's what they meant for it to be. No,
absolutely not. Wasn't there a similar thing with Charles Manson and Helter Skelter, where he made all those people do everything they did because he said that the Beatles told him to do it because they listened to Helter Skelter.
If there's a documentary called Helter Skelter where they go into that. So remember, he was trying to record his own music, but she wasn't a very good musician, he was kind of blaming that, and it was something about a race war. So something in Helter Skelter made him think that a race war was coming, and that's why he pushed everybody to do it. It's a very weird. I don't remember. I remember watching the documentary, but obviously the documentary mostly focused on what happened with Sharon Tate and everything. Mm-hmm. But I do know there was something about a race war, and they were preparing for it. Why she had to die, I don't know. But that's something in Helter Skelter. But then that goes to the whole. Remember the '90s kind of. Satanic panic or whatever they called it, Satan Panic, whatever. There's a rhyme there, but I'm not saying it right. Like the Smashing Pumpkins, if you play it backwards type things and things of that nature.
Because there was a whole thing of like, if you played Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin and Judas Priest and all this stuff backwards, it had, they call it backward masking.
Yeah.
Where it had satanic messages in it. And what's funny is I think it's the first Tenacious D album.
It all comes full circle.
There's bits in that. Apparently, if you play that backwards, it says, go to church, hug your parents, love people, all this kind of stuff.
That's amazing. And I'm truthfully hoping Jack Black did that on purpose. That would make that even better. All right. So I'm going to play, let's see if I've got any other good ones that were submitted. I figure these would just branch out some good conversations. Let's see. Okay, so Sarah, who's also from one of our Freak Jams, she said that Superstition by Stevie Wonder, she thought 7 years of bad luck. She thought it said 7 years of bad luck, good things in your pants. What is that song lyric even? What is the actual song lyric? Now what? Very superstitious.
Writing on the
wall. Very superstitious. Ladder's about to fall. 13-month-old baby. I don't know what lyric that is.
But it must be in there. The other thing that annoys me with Superstition is when you play it in cover bands, people call it superstitious.
Oh, yeah.
Superstitious, it's superstition.
And you know what's really weird? Speaking of Disney, we were talking last time about how Mickey, which I played for Tim afterwards, guys, the Mickey version of Mambo No. 5, and it's amazing. It does exist. Now, when I was in probably middle school, there was a movie that came out. It was called like Ghost Ship, Ghost Mansion, Ghost something. Mm-hmm. And Raven Simone did a cover of Superstition. And it was all over Disney. Now, Raven Simone's actually a really good singer. She was on the Masked Singer last season, and she was very good, but I knew instantly it was her. She was part of the Cheetah Girls, which Tim probably has no idea what that is. But she's actually an amazing singer. And if you've never heard her cover of it, it's actually quite good. And just throwing that out there. And so, but they used it in that movie for Disney. And if I remember right, the video they played with it was almost comical. Like it was like very much taking a song about superstition and a movie that's supposed to be about ghosts and making it very Disney. Mm-hmm. And it was like, little ghosts popping out, and it's kind of like it downplayed how good the actual track was because she was having to sing it in front of the Disney version of that video. So that was an interesting one if you've never seen it. I just remember it used to play on Disney Channel in the commercials. Mm. Did they do that? Was that a thing in Europe? Like, did childhood TV stations have like kid versions of songs, or was that an American thing?
I think it's an American thing because when I grew up, you had children's TV on ITV and BBC, but it was like you'd have a cartoon or a children's program, but the Disneyfication of children's TV, I think, is purely a Disney thing. I mean, it's probably different now, but certainly when I was growing up, that was never a thing.
Well, and then you've got Kids Bop. Do you know what Kids Bop is, Tim?
I think you need to educate me.
Okay. So this is going to come full circle with the lyrics thing. So Kids Bop, and there's like 1,000 of them by now. It's kind of like now what you call music, but for children. So it's like a 74 song lyrics, like 74 list of songs that are popular at that moment, and they put them out, but they make kids versions of them.
Oh dear. So
they're taking songs that really don't always have the greatest content and trying to make them more kid friendly. So I'm trying to think of a good one that I can say that it's going to be PG. And Kesha's TikTok, before I leave, brush my teeth with a bottle of Jack. The Kids Bop version is before I leave, brush my teeth, then I go and pack.
What?
Yeah,
that's like that Mambo No. 5 where like Lou Bega is reading off all these young ladies, and then like the Disney version is like what?
Okay, So I'm trying to think of another one. I'm trying to find ones that don't involve. Okay, so glad you came by the one and hand you another drink if you can. Hand you another dance if you can. So that's what they do. I don't know what hand you another dance even means.
It means whichever songwriter who reinterpreted that song just for a paycheck was probably done on a Friday afternoon and they were tired.
And what's really funny is some of these kids, because Kids Bop dates back to when I was a child. So, like, we could go back pretty far. These are just some of the modern day ones I was looking at when I was researching this. And so there's some of them were people who actually wanted to become musicians, or like me and you, who kind of like wanted to do music as for some reason. And so now they're trying to become like real musicians, but all anyone could think about is them singing the Kids Bop versions. And the videos were absolutely ridiculous too. So they looked ridiculous. So now people and they picked kids who were talented, who had, pretty good singing skills, still sounded like children, of course, but somebody who showed some kind of like the Mickey Mouse Club kids type thing, who showed some promise. And now they can't get past the fact that they were known as the Kids Bop kids.
Do you know what? Now I come to think of it, now as the cogs are churning in my head, I think in England there used to be a thing called the mini pops. which I think is the same thing, because I remember like little kids dressed up as like rock stars doing the songs of the day. I'm sure that was a thing, the mini pops. I think it was a Channel 4 thing, I think, because obviously you know what Channel 4 is now.
No, not a clue.
We had three. When growing up, we had 3 TV channels, 2 BBC and 1 commercial channel. And then somewhere in the early 80s, we got Channel 4. And Channel 4 was a lot more highbrow art programming and stuff. And sometimes they'd show foreign films and things like that. But they also had some unusual programming. And I could have sworn Mini Pops was on that. And I think when we finish recording, I need to look this up just to prove this. But I think it was a thing.
I mean, that makes it funnier. But so in Katy Perry's, they've done like California Girls, which obviously has some innuendos in it. Yeah. And it's almost like they pick the most ridiculous songs because they just want to do whatever's popular. But yeah, so that was a big thing that I came across, was the Kids Bop version of those. I was curious if that was an American thing, because it seems like in America, any child that had to be in Disney or anything, they also had to put some type of music out, whether they were good at it or not.
So the question is, did they do Buck Cherry's song, and did they call it I'm Crazy Rich or something?
That's a great question, because I know exactly what song you're referencing. Guys, if you don't know, just go look Buck Cherry. I can't say it out loud.
I just wonder if that was a thing, or whether they've just completely passed that.
Kids Bop. By the way, kids is spelled with a Z because they're cool.
Oh, obviously. Do you know, when I was a kid, you used to go to Woolworths, and you could buy records which was all the hits of the day with the original lyrics intact, but they were sound-alike artists. And they used to be on the top of the Pops label. So
that always makes me think of when you go into the Halloween stores around Halloween time, the ones that just pop up, Spirit Halloween or whatever. Yeah. They'll have Thriller by Michael Jackson playing, but it's not Thriller by Michael Jackson. It's Thriller by the third party they could afford in the CD player.
Yeah. It's not Michael Jackson. It's by the Michael Jackson singers or something.
Yeah, something. And it's always something ridiculous like that. They do it in Chinese restaurants too, if you ever noticed. So if you're sitting in a Chinese restaurant, they'll have an instrumental version of a song, and it's kind of given some type of Asian sound, but it'll be you're sitting there and you realize Time After Time is playing, but it's not Time After Time.
That's weird. I mean, I know my fabulous 80s TV programs that I enjoy so much, the zenith of which is Knight Rider, obviously. All the songs that were heard on there were songs of the day, but they weren't the original artists because NBC were too cheap to get the original artists, so they were sound-alikes that did it.
Okay, Tim, so I cannot confirm or deny what you asked about the crazy song from earlier. Somebody's saying, yes, they did a version, but I can't find out. But apparently they did do a version of 9 Inch Nails Closer, and possibly the Bloodhound Gang's Bad Touch.
They did the Bad Touch?
Yeah.
Really?
I'm curious to see if I can find what the Kids Bop version is of that, because there would have to be a lot of changes to that song.
I think what this podcast needs is a companion Spotify playlist wrap up at the end. We need to post it somewhere.
So this is just on Reddit, and people are saying 9 Inch Nails Closer. Oh, Lord. I can't say it, but if you know it, The Lonely Island featuring Akon, I Just Had Blank. The Bad Touch by the Bloodhound Gang. Pumped Up Kicks. We were just talking about that one earlier. There's some Eminem songs, which we all know have some interesting. And a song, Tim, by Two Live Crew that you probably know without me telling you.
Yeah. I mean... As I said before, I mean, there is a professional songwriter somewhere who's on a payroll, who's getting paid for this, and they're like, right, okay, Monday morning, 9 a.m., here's the Two Live Crew song, make it kid-friendly. That is something that happened.
And you know what? They probably get paid good money to do it. I kind of want that job now. That would be hilarious when people ask you what you do for a living. I'm the person who took the bad touch and made it clean for the Kids Bop Kids. But I mean, going back to something we were just talking about, was S Club 7 popular in Europe? I thought they were.
Absolutely, yeah. S Clubs for a while. S Club 7 were a thing.
I was a big S Club 7 fan, which probably does not surprise you in any way. And then there was Steps.
Yeah.
I don't know if Steps were a thing in Europe. They both had TV shows associated with them. I think that they came on a Europe channel, actually.
I think so, but it was all at the same time. It was like sort of 5 attractive people in a row singing type thing.
It was. But what I was going to say is we talked about like these kids who were on Kids Bop and now they're trying to become famous and people can't look at them the same way. I imagine it was probably the same for like S Club 7, Steps, things of that nature. They probably could never get away from that mentality.
That's true, but I think you find a lot of those people and the super talented ones go off and have some kind of solo career, and they seem to be able to shed it. And I think some of the other ones, if they stay in the business, to end up being producers and songwriters. And
so they're probably making bank anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Because that guy from Take That, Gary Barlow, I think he was, after Take That finished, I know they Take That come and go, and they do tours and they don't tour and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But Gary Barlow is known as a songwriter.
I have no idea. I think I've heard like one song from them and heard you talk about them, but they really, I guess they probably weren't that famous in America, because I'm assuming though they're the same type band we're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, they're all guys. It's the same thing.
Oh, I have heard of them. They were like there was 5 males and it was kind of like they were popular in early 90s or something in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was another one. Did you ever get Boyzone?
Yes, actually, that's the one I have heard of more than Take That.
Yeah, Boyzone. The standout star of that one was a guy called Ronan Keating.
Yeah, I've even heard his name before.
Yeah, and he had a big solo career after the fact.
Well, I mean, truthfully, it's probably the same as some of the more mega bands. Like, obviously, Justin Timberlake separated from NSYNC, and he was an amazing singer. Mm-hmm. I don't know that anybody from Backstreet Boys really kind of did a solo act, but actually all 5 of them are great singers. Spice Girls, Mel B and Mel C were probably the best singers of the group, easily. Oh, and they probably, I mean, Sporty had the biggest solo career, and I think she was more popular in Europe than she was. Ginger tried, bless her heart. She tried. That's all I'm going to say about that.
The only thing I know about Mel C is sporty, Mel B is scary. Is that correct?
In any other context, that would be a weird statement.
Yeah. All I know about Mel B is I used to know someone who worked at Legoland in Windsor in England, and they had some deal where you could, the park opened at 9, and then if you came in at 1 p.m, it was half price. Like you came in later in the day, or it was a discount, or it was cheaper or something. And it was like 1 p.m, and she came in at 12:15 and said, "Come on, I want the cheap price." And they said, well, I'm terribly sorry, madam. The discounted rate starts at 1 p.m. or whatever it was. And then she went on and on and on. And she threw the "don't you know who I am" lot.
Oh, Lord. So I know one other person who threw the "don't you know who I am" to someone very close to me. So this is to my father, who is obviously older and would not know who Vanilla Ice was if his life depended on it. Wouldn't know him from Adam. So anyway, my father used to be a truck driver. He trained truck drivers. He was in the military, got out, he went into truck driving. So he was at a truck stop, was waiting in, I think, a subway line for his sandwich. Mm-hmm. There's 2 or 3 people in front of him. And Vanilla Ice, what is his real name? Like something Van Winkle?
It's something Van Winkle,
ridiculous. It fits him very well. Anyway, so he walks up and he wanted to pass my father in the line to get his sandwich. And my father said no. And he said, well, don't you know who I am? My dad went, nope, and turned back around and waited. Actually, he threw a cuss word in there too, but he just turned back around and waited. And he only found out it was Vanilla Ice when he went outside. His tour bus was out there, and it had like Vanilla Ice's face with a picture or something. And they were parked on the truck driver's side because it's a big tour bus. And so most everybody in this side of the truck stop were truckers, but he just happened to be like, and so later on he put 2 and 2 together on who he was when we explained to him the one song that 2 songs Vanilla Ice had. One was a ripoff of Queen. But anyway, yeah, Vanilla Ice walked up to my father in a truck stop and tried to pull, do you know who I am? He did not.
And I mean, that's not cool. I mean, if you're, I don't know, you're Eddie Van Halen, you're, I don't know, name insert Paul McCartney, for example. Yeah. It's still not cool, but they're icons. But honestly, but Vanilla Ice?
The real icons of the world, like really people that I would think have some sway in that, they're not even going to do that because they're usually better than that. Like, truthfully.
No, exactly. And I'm just saying it's funny as Vanilla Ice.
Of all people, which, yeah, I did hear one time, I was listening to Elton John. He was doing an interview, and, you know, he's notoriously a diva. Yeah. And he admits that this was bad, and he called down to the front desk of the hotel he was staying in and asked them if they could make the wind stop being so loud. He said, I know, I think there was probably drugs maybe involved or something, but he's like, because he said, they sort of asked him, what was your biggest diva moment? And he goes, well, that one. Because could you imagine just sitting there at the desk and being like, la, la, la. And, you know, most of them are using a pseudonym anyway, because they don't want all the desk employees to know that, you know, Elton John's in room 302 or whatever. So 302 calls you and you're like, that guy sounds really familiar. And then a very disheveled guy sounding like Elton John just asks you if you can make the wind stop making so much noise.
Here's an interesting fact for you. Say, like, you said about rock and roll pseudonyms. Did you know the band the Ramones?
Uh-huh.
Did you know where they get their name from?
Wasn't it like a pseudonym or something of somebody's?
Yeah. It's Paul McCartney's touring pseudonym. He used to check into hotels as Paul Ramone.
Oh, yeah. I think you were the one who told me that. That's the only reason I know.
Well, I only found that out a year ago, and I was like, oh, really?
That's interesting. Well, I've looked up some of them that people use. They're kind of funny, but at the same time, I mean, truthfully, if one person were to check into the hotel and somebody at the front desk sees them, you know, they're whispering to everybody going, Oprah's in room 407. Like, truthfully,
exactly.
The word's probably out. There's really no way for them to hide. But also, though, here's a dumb question about that. And maybe this is a more modern thing. But you know how, like, serious they are now about your credit card when you're checking into hotels and they have to see it and they have to, and if you want to use somebody else's credit card, you have to sign all this paperwork. How do celebrities use a pseudonym to check in and it doesn't match the credit card they're paying with?
Well, I would imagine someone else is paying for the room. So I
producer or manager.
Yeah,
or something.
I would assume your manager or your tour manager or whoever has booked the room and has or booked a floor. Maybe if it's a whole touring act.
Yeah.
And then you would just for security reasons have to give a name who's going to be in the room. I think you have to say who's going to be in the room overnight. But I think also, like you say, it could be a more modern thing where they want ID where they never used to ask for ID.
Yeah, because I mean, the last time I stayed in a hotel, my dad paid for it because he gets like those like frequent flyer miles equivalent at a hotel. I don't know what they're called. Some type of kickbacks for him. So he said, I'll get it for you. And then I paid him back. But they like made him do like a credit card release form and he had to sign it. And like it was a whole to do just to get, because he wanted to pay for the room. I kind of felt bad, truthfully, but it was his idea. But another thing, you're talking about renting a whole penthouse. So, cool fact, guys. I was at Walt Disney World Swan and Dolphin Inn. And on one of them, they're called Swan and Dolphin because there's two separate hotels. It's a very big property. My mom was doing a conference for work. And we happened to they were using their conference room. And this is on like Walt Disney property. You're probably looking at $2,000 a night type, really nice stuff. 27 pools. Like we were living it. Michael Jackson rented the penthouse of one of them. I don't know which one it was, Swan or Dolphin. And so the rumor was going around the hotel that he had rented the entire, it was like a triangle, like it was like a pyramid. And there's like a triangle right at the top. That was the penthouse. And he supposedly had rented that whole penthouse for himself. And a helicopter kept flying by. And everybody at that hotel kept claiming that Michael Jackson was going around in the helicopter. I never got to see him, but that's what they claimed.
It could be, or it could be a decoy helicopter.
It could have been a decoy helicopter, or he could not have been there at all. And one person told one other person in the hotel, and it made it around.
And you know how these rumors start going round.
Tim, have you ever stayed in a hotel with a celebrity and ran into them?
I have a very not cool celebrity in a hotel story. So.
Oh no.
Well, it's not cool. It was cool at the time, but it's not cool anymore. So
it hasn't aged well.
It has aged horrifically.
Gotcha.
So I used to play occasionally at the Hotel Roanoke. A friend of mine used to work at the Hotel Roanoke, and they have I think they've changed things around since, but they have a bar, like a downstairs bar. And me and my friend Kirk played in the Hotel Roanoke bar, and it's just the two of us, acoustic duo. He worked there. It was a bit of fun. It was nice. It was quite relaxed. It wasn't a big loud rock gig or anything like that. It's just the two of us running through some songs. A few people in the bar. They really seemed to enjoy it. And who was staying in the fancy penthouse? Bill Cosby.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Gary Glitters for a minute, but yeah,
no.
that didn't age well either.
The lady behind the bar said, but I think because she knew Kirk, so this wouldn't be something you would tell the regular general public. But she said, oh, Bill's in, and he often comes down for a drink. Maybe he'll come down to see you. And at the time, you thought, oh, that's kind of cool. Bill Cosby is going to come and see us play, and he didn't come. But it's aged very, very badly.
Yeah, that's awkward. I'm trying to think if I have any celebrities. I met the band that used to play. What was the guy who sang Blueberry Hill? What is his name?
Fats Domino.
His drummer and a few of his band men, we went to they're called like the Clerk of the Board. My parents are big into some, like going to concerts and stuff with some of that older sound music. They like beach music, they like Motown, that kind of stuff. When we went to something, they call themselves like the chairman of the board or something.
Okay.
Anyway, the drummer and the bassist and the guitar player were all used to play with Fats Domino's, you know what I meant. Anyway, yeah, like the pizza place. No. So I remember this is at the time when I really thought I was going to be a drummer. Let me just play this out for you guys. I have no hand-eye coordination. I am clumsy. And to be honest, I mean, I can keep rhythm, but not that great. I was never going to be a good drummer, not even by the slightest. But I had in my head I was going to be a really good drummer. So I got my drum kit and I was ready. I was not ready. But I remember we were going to see this concert and they all kind of stayed back afterwards and, we're shaking hands, saying hi, being really nice because, not every celebrity will do that. They were very nice. Mm-hmm. And my dad was talking to him about me wanting to be a drummer, and he gave him all these recommendations on all these DVDs and books and everything I should do. Didn't do one of them, to be honest. I spent about 10 minutes. I can, like, if you put me like on a Tom Petty song and I just need to hit a hi-hat and a snare on a count of 4, I can do that. But outside of it, you don't want to hear me drum. I can do Wipeout because it's, strictly floor tom, just rhythmic. But outside of that, not my thing. It's never going to be my thing. Was there any...
The thing is, it's the enthusiasm, Joy. That's what it is. It's sheer enthusiasm, passion, and enjoyment. If you've had fun doing it, that's half of it.
Okay. Well, we'll say that my lack of skills. With that being said, Tim, was there ever any instrument you tried that you weren't good at?
Yeah. Well, my musical journey started on the euphonium in primary school when I was about 10 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old, and the euphonium being a small tuba.
Okay, yeah, because I'm sitting there going, am I supposed to know what that is?
Yeah, it's like a small tuba. And I wanted to play a musical instrument, and the only reason I picked the euphonium is because in the music room, when they had all the instruments laid out, and they said, you can pick whichever one you want. I picked that one because the case was the biggest.
Makes a lot of sense, Tim.
So my brain of that time, that's what I veered to. I did it for a year or two, and I was never any good at it, and it never really clicked with me. But I mean, I'm happy with the way I play guitar, but I've always wanted to be able to play keyboards, and the problem is I don't have any understanding of music theory, really, so I can't translate what I do on the guitar to a keyboard. It just doesn't. I can't make the two connect.
See, and that's what's interesting to me, because I played the recorder when I was like in kindergarten, like everybody else. It could give you some little happy birthday on the recorder. Mm-hmm. But then in first grade, I started taking piano lessons. Mm-hmm. So that was the first instrument I picked up on. And I will say, I'm glad I started the piano at a young age, because as I got older, like you were saying, music theory, the piano is kind of like that global instrument. I think that is a basis that can teach you a lot about music theory that you could use throughout your life. Because if I hadn't done that, I don't know that, like in college when I was taking music theory and I was learning to read music and on a grade, reading stuff on a grade staff, I don't think it would have ever clicked on me if I hadn't started the piano that young. Truthfully.
Yeah. And my journey with guitar, I went straight to guitar. I never learned that. I mean, I remember I had like a Casio or Yamaha keyboard I had as a kid, and you can play like chopsticks.
Don't insult the Casio. Mine's in the kitchen right now.
I played Three Blind Mice or chopsticks or something on it, but I never really mastered it of any degree. But I went from that to guitar, and then that's where I found my feet on guitar.
No, that makes sense. I tried guitar once, definitely couldn't do that either. Couldn't get my brain to wrap around the positioning of the strings, like the way they're up and down and the way you have to hold it. My brain couldn't comprehend that, which is kind of embarrassing, but it's true. I have played a little bit of bass just because there are certain bass lines that are pretty simple. Mm-hmm. Truthfully, there are some bass lines that are complicated. I'm not, there's a theory that anyone can play bass, but I don't agree with that.
Well, the thing is with bass is that most guitar players, certainly most lead guitar players, can play bass to some degree, but there's passable rock bass like I can play and most guitar players can play, and then there's proper bass.
That's what you were saying. There is different.
Real bass players play. And when you've played bass with somebody like a guy called Ian Moratio, we used to call him Lillian, who's the bass player who's in the intro music from Frequency. When you've played with him, you realise that everything I play on bass is woefully inadequate because he is a real bass player.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I know that there's like some theory. Sorry, I did not mean to cut you off, Tim. There's some theory that a lot of people say anyone can play bass, but I don't necessarily think that's true. And that's kind of why I would imagine. Because like some bass lines, I imagine would be very complicated to learn.
And it's a groove thing. It's the way you hang with the drums, and it's the whole groove of the song. And as like I said, I can pick up. You can throw me in a rock band, and I can play bass to some degree, and it will sound all right. But then as I said, you play with someone of Ian Ratio's caliber, and then you go, yeah, that's what a real bass player does.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and then I never tried really any other instruments. Occasionally, I would pick up an instrument. I tried to play the bongos because, I was on the drum kick. Couldn't play the bongos either, not even a little bit. So that was not my thing. It really, though, kind of like we were saying with the bass, it's like a lot of it's just about timing and having that ability to hit those, to really get the timing down. And I am the kind of person that, like, you throw a ball at me and the ball will hit me in the face because, like, there's a delayed reaction. Mm-hmm. You don't want that as your drummer. You're about half a beat off for the entire song. And so that usually tends to throw off the whole thing. So drumming is never part of my thing. No. Did you ever play the drums, Tim, or are you like me? You can middle your way through it.
I can vaguely play it until you get to a roll, and then when the roll comes in, I completely lose it. I mean, when I played in Rough Justice, I often would sound check the drums for my own entertainment, and like I said, I can do like a passable beat, and then when you get with the bit where you roll around the toms and you hit the cymbals, it just completely falls apart.
I get a little aggressive with my cymbal hitting too. So I had a friend who had a drum set, and he would always, we would go over and we would jam, and truthfully, we may have had a few too many drinks, and then I was convinced I was a good drummer. Mm-hmm. Well, still wasn't a good drummer, but he was actually a very good guitarist. And usually I would do the vocals because that's where I tend to be. And my best friend, Molly, who was on one of our previous episodes, she's a great percussionist. Like, fantastic percussionist. Put her on the drums and it's amazing. But that's what, when she was younger, she was in high school band, and that's what she did. She was a percussionist. So she can really pull off that kind of thing. So typically she would be the ones playing the drums. But every once in a while I would get it in my brain, I'm going to play the drums. Well, this drum set was kind of needled together, to say the very least. And none of the crash cymbal, the hi-hat, none of it had the wing nuts. Like, all of the wing nuts were missing. So I would get really into it, and then I'd be like, crash, and a cymbal would go flying across the road, across the room. It may have hit a guitar a few times. The bass pedal didn't have... I think it was supposed to be a double bass, but I think they took the double bass off. Mm-hmm. But the bass pedal didn't have the thing, I guess it's probably another wing nut, that would keep the thing from going too far back.
Yeah.
I guess it's, what's the word I'm looking for? Not the stick, the whatever it is that hits it.
Yeah, I know the thing.
So when you got done playing, your foot would be bruised. Because I got a little too aggressive. So that's the extent of what I can do on the drums, is I can send a crash cymbal across the room if I get really into it. Yep.
Goodness me. Well, I tell you what, Joy, before we wrap up this conversation, which has started off with Misheard lyrics, and we ended up with Vanilla Ice saying, "Who don't you know who I am?"
That better be the title of this episode.
Do you have any other Misheard lyrics? I just thought of one that apparently is I just looked it up. That apparently is common. We built this city by Starship.
Yes.
Some people say it says we built this city on sausage rolls.
That one I can hear, because we built this city. We built this city on rock and roll. I can hear sausage rolls. I still don't know what the one we heard from Superstition was earlier. I'm going to have to play around with that. Yeah. I do. I have 3 more contributions that I was going to come back around to. Okay. I have a friend who, her name is Diane, and she used to book bands, and she was fantastic. She had... what is it? So, that Your Body is a Wonderland by John Mayer. It says rolling in a deep sea of blankets. She thought it said rolling in the dipsies in blankets. My best friend, Molly, she's a huge Green Day fan. Well, When I Come Around, I'm sure you're familiar with that song. Yeah. Well, I've heard it all before. Sold donuts at my door instead of so don't knock down my door is what she heard. And then my mother, whose name is Marie, I'm going to leave it with my mom. Yeah. She thought when she was younger, ebony and ivory was Ebony and my Marie.
Okay.
The awkward silence. She was a kid and her name was Marie. So I'm imagining she thought the song was, being dedicated to her.
Well, I tell you what, I will leave you with one more. So I just looked this up while you was talking. Apparently another common one is hot chocolates, you sexy thing.
Oh, yeah.
And the line of I believe in miracles is commonly misheard as I remove umbilicals.
Okay. In what context in that song, do they think that is a so like I've heard like misheard lyrics, but these are the ones that amaze me, like sold donuts at the door, like at my door. In what context were there anything related to umbilical cords or donuts in these two scenarios? I will never know. But that's what interested me.
Well, I tell you what, dear podcast listeners, we will leave you with that thought. You can see how hot chocolate would be involved in removing umbilicals.
All right, bye.
See you later. Bye-bye.